The Blackcaps. I don't think this qualifies as a munting. I don't think they got
Nah.
munted, but they did lose to Sri Lanka, and I suspect we'll get into some real nitty gritty in the subscriber podcast because we'll also be previewing the second test. The second test that is at Gaul. So we're back at Gaul
Huh.
for the second test, which is a bit strange, but hey, anyone who watched the first test between Sri Lanka and the Blackcaps at Gaul wouldn't mind another test at Gaul. It's just a beautiful venue, and that is the beauty of beauty. That's a lot of beauty. Beautiful, beautiful. That is the joy of test cricket around the world, is just spending a couple of days in a beautiful part of the world. And Saturday, I did catch a episode of Anthony Bourdain, No Reservations, on the Living Channel. Shout out. Guess where Anthony Bourdain was traveling? He was in Sri Lanka. And this was a while ago because it was 4 years after the Boxing Day tsunami. Big ups to everyone affected by the Boxing Day tsunami. Horrible event here in the Southern Oceans. Plural, because I'm not sure exactly what oceans they are. But he was in Sri Lanka, and it was just after, not just after, it was a couple of years after the Boxing Day tsunami, and there was he was there while there's a lot of political upheaval. But I was thinking that that's a sign that this is just a fantastic moment for a Blackcaps victory. Obviously, the food in Sri Lanka is off the chisane, so if might need to hit that up with a little trip to Gaul, because Gaul is beautiful, Sri Lanka is beautiful, the food is amazing. Anthony Bourdain had a good time. I had a good time from my couch in Okalangi, Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, watching a bit of cricket, bit of test cricket. So it was a good time. Love a bit of Gaul, love a bit of Sri Lanka, and I don't love how soft this Blackcaps batting unit is. I do not love the fact that the Blackcaps have lost 3 tests in a row, stretching back to back-to-back losses against Australia, abandon test against Afghanistan, lose the first test against Sri Lanka. I do not enjoy the dip in standards of the Blackcaps. It's just, they're not the same. They're not the same in the sense that the fielding's a bit sloppy. There's no gritty, rugged batting. It's just kind of, battle for a bit, get out, hit out, just do something dumb. Not really focused in. Like, if Glenn Phillips is batting, you got to be ready for a single. Daryl Mitchell wasn't ready for the single. He's run out after he's on like 70 runs or whatever. So there's that element of the Blackcaps. Like, I like what the Blackcaps are doing. I like who they are. I think they can be far more Kiwi in their identity. But overall, I like what the Blackcaps are doing. However, their batting is soft. And that's just straight up and down, full steak and cheese pie. They are soft. At the same time, we've got Rachin Ravindra, we got Glenn Phillips, and we got Big Will O'Rourke, the War, from Smashing Hands fame. And it's kind of complicated, I think, in absorbing this test specifically, because there are foundation elements that make this Blackcaps team really fun, really exciting, and I think we should all be hopeful about the future of Blackcaps cricket and Kiwi cricket in general, because I think there's a lot of great women's players on the rise as well. Like, Rachin Ravindra's awesome. He was the best batter at the ODI World Cup, and he's continuing that in Test cricket because he's got the highest average of Blackcaps batters in the World Test Championship right now. He's averaging 57.7. Kane Williamson's averaging 54.1. Now, who's the dude with the best bowling average? It's the Big War. He's averaging 15.5. Matt Henry is averaging 16.9. So the dude with the highest batting average for the Blackcaps in the World Test Championship and the dude with the best bowling average are the newest players to the Test team. or the newest players to consistent test roles, because Ravindra did have a stint with the test team a couple of years ago, but now he's in at number 4, and he's got the highest batting average of the Blackcaps in the World Test Championship. Now we've got Will O'Rourke steaming in, bowling 140 Ks, nipping the ball all over the show, in Sri Lanka, swinging the ball when no one else is swinging the ball, and he's got the lowest bowling average for the Blackcaps in the World Test Championship. So there's these, like, the result stinks, to be honest, because they collapsed in the second innings. The game's on the line. You got a reachable target of 275 runs, which is on show because you're all out for 211. Like, you're not that far off. There was hope for the last day, and you just give it up. Like, it's just soft. But at the same time, there's some freaky youngsters in this team. Rachin Ravindra and Will O'Rourke are doing amazing stuff with bat and ball, and then you've got someone like Phillips doing everything. Fielding, bowling, batting. He is the most exciting cricketer in the world. He's the most exciting cricketer in the team. Of course, you got Kane Williamson, you got Ajaz Patel doing great stuff as well. But it's like I just don't think the Blackcaps are that good right now. Because also with the ball, there's a lot of bad balls. Like Will O'Rourke, the way I was thinking about it, he's not necessarily a bowler right now who's bowling 5 good balls and 1 bad ball. Ideally, you bowl 2 overs worth of good balls. Like, that's legendary stuff. Will O'Rourke is like, he's going to bowl 2 good balls at you, and some of the Sri Lankan batters couldn't survive those 2 good balls in an over. But he's also going to bowl a couple of bad balls, and that's all right. You take that. But there's other bowlers in the lineup who are bowling 2 or 3 bad balls in the over as well, and there's batters who aren't scoring runs. And there's 2 batters. We've got Tom Blundell, who's averaging 12.7 in the World Test Championship, and we've got Devon Conway averaging 11.5. Now, this is a bit weird because Matt Henry and Timothy Southee have more runs in the World Test Championship than Devon Conway. And Matt Henry's just having a whack. Matt Henry's just coming out and having a whack. He's got a strike rate of 110 in the World Test Championship. Tim Southee, he's got a strike rate of 74. So he's kind of having a whack, kind of not having a whack. He's not scoring many runs anyway. But he's scoring more runs than Devon Conway, who's got a strike rate of 35. So Devon Conway's literally not scoring many runs and not scoring them very quickly, which is the epitome of out of form. There's a whole lot of kind of jumping off points here, diving boards into the Blackcaps pool after this first test. Let's start with Devon Conway. How are you feeling about Devon Conway? Because I want to add, he's got this casual contract with New Zealand cricket. New Zealand cricket were pretty damn generous to Devon Conway because the only other bloke with a casual contract is the legend of Kane Williamson. That's how New Zealand cricket views Devon Conway. And the root of that casual contract is the SA20, South Africa's T20 tournament. I want to put this out there because I was thinking about this with the Breakers. Like, there's a chance that the Breakers are going on their big American trip and they're at the bottom of the ladder. They won the first game, but it's possible that they're going to America as the worst team in the NBL. It might be unlikely, but it's possible, which is just a very weird situation. It is unlikely, but possible, that Devon Conway, by the time he goes to the SA20, he's not a first 11 player in any format for the Blackcaps. He might be out of the test team, and he's not going to be playing those ODIs and T20s over the summer, so someone else might take their opportunity. Thinking back to the Ford Trophy stuff, Tim Robinson might be someone who benefits from Ford Trophy starting the summer when he can come out and bang boundaries and put himself in that Blackcaps mix, because Tim Robinson's a good batter, but he's not necessarily a Plunkett Shield dynamo. The shorter the format, the better his batting, so maybe Ford Trophy is a good place for him to start. Those are the type of dudes who are going to get those opportunities this summer. And to be honest, Kiwis don't care about T20 cricket around the world. Like, Kiwis don't judge New Zealand cricketers on what they do in random T20 tournaments. They judge Kiwi cricketers on what they're doing for New Zealand. And right now, Devon Conway isn't doing anything for New Zealand. He was kind of mediocre at the T20 World Cup. His form slump stretches into T20 international cricket. So I can see a situation where he falls out of the first 11 for the test team at some point over the next 3 months. And because he's not playing ODIs in T20 cricket, he's just overtaken by other dudes who are desperate for that opportunity to represent New Zealand. And if all of that happens, we may leave this summer, otherwise known as autumn, we may enter autumn and Devon Conway's just no longer a Blackcap. That is the cold, hard reality of what we're dealing with right now. All of which can change if Devon Conway scores some runs, but he's averaging 11 in the World Test Championship. He's not averaging 26 like Tom Latham in the World Test Championship. He's not averaging 32.4 like Daryl Mitchell in the World Test Championship. He's not averaging 27 like Will Young in the World Test Championship. He's not averaging 20 like Kyle Jamieson. He's not averaging 23 like Matt Henry. He's not averaging 11.54 like Tim Southey. He's averaging 11.50. And that is really low. Like, that's White Ferns low. And it's a very precarious position for Devon Conway.
That's White Ferns ODI T20 low, so Blackcaps test low is like that. Those things shouldn't, they should not be crossing over those paths.
So Devon Conway in the World Test Championship, average of 11.5, strike rate of 35. Those are White Ferns T20 numbers.
Yeah. 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 Well, I don't know where we're at with that, because he's so clearly out of form, and I kind of struggle to see them dropping him, even though, like, Will Young is right there. You get a left and right hand combination. He's opened the batting with Tom Latham before. It wouldn't be a fresh thing. It's not the ideal spot for Will Young, but he would probably be the next candidate. Because I don't think you really want to mess with Rachin Ravindra batting it as well as he has done at 4. I think he gets priority there because he's got runs on the board, so fair enough. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, I thought this performance wasn't as soft as you seem to think it was. Like, I certainly wasn't a hardened Blackcaps performance, and it's clear that they just have never been able to replace the not so much the ability, but I'll say the profile of someone like BJ Watling, just at the bottom of the middle order, who is your insurance against a batting collapse. But I don't know that I don't know if I would call their 4th innings a collapse, because I think they put some partnerships together. It's just you need a big partnership in there. You need 100+ partnership if you're going to chase that total in those conditions away from home on a spinning deck, which is not our strength anyway. And we didn't get that. Sri Lanka did. Sri Lanka in their 3rd innings, I think it was Chandamal and Karunaratne, I think, put on a big partnership. And the Blackcaps did quite well to come back and break that partnership, and cleaned up Sri Lanka's lower order in both innings really nicely. I think there was twice where they began the in first sessions they did that twice. They came back, started the new day with Sri Lanka midway through an innings, and cleaned up a bunch of wickets, and that was good. And there was stuff like that's the kind of thing we haven't always seen from them. Yeah, go.
And I think it must have been the subscriber pod, the bonus pod on Thursday. I did say I was curious to see if that was going to be the case, because that's another indicator of the Blackcaps kind of culture and tactics and planning and preparation. Like the fielding standards have dropped. I think the wicket keeping quality has dropped. And there's a few other similar observations, but I always felt confident that the Blackcaps could start a new day, start a new session, and take wickets. So that is a very good sign.
It's a good sign. However, at the same time, in that batting session, you also saw Devon Conway get out just before the end of a session, and you saw Mitch Santner get out just before the end of a session. So there were also flip sides to that where you didn't get it, and probably not a coincidence that it was those two as well, because I thought there was a. Well, I say that I thought the overall performance wasn't. It was soft in places. It certainly wasn't a hardened performance. It was soft in places. Those places were players like Devon Conway and Mitchell Santner with the bat, who Santner just looked like he was drowning out there, and then eventually chipped a ball straight to cover with one of the rare hittable ones he got, which was just a struggle. But then at the same time, you got Ajaz Patel came in and batted nicely and saw them through to the end of the day. Rachin Ravindra, fantastic in that innings. He was unlucky to get out the way he did early the next day because, I don't know, I thought that pitched outside leg stump. Obviously, the technology proved me wrong. It was close enough. It was on that borderline. And you had instances throughout that test. I thought Kane Williamson was extremely unlucky in the second innings, and we know how influential he is in fourth innings chases. When the Blackcaps win fourth innings chases, I think he averages 110 or something. And when they lose, he averages less than 30. And he got out for about 30 here. So that was pretty much at that point, I'm like, okay, most likely we're going to lose this. But he came down the wicket and got a ball that turned sideways and stumped him. That's not a normal delivery to have to face. It was just a bit of a freak instance. But I thought in the first innings where he scored 50 as well, and I think this probably happened to Daryl Mitchell a little bit leading up to his run out as well. It was the runs had been flowing, but then the runs dried up. And there was a stage where Williamson was scoring quite nicely at around 70, 80 strike rate for a lot of that innings. In both innings actually. But in the first one, he got to the point where suddenly he'd scored 2 runs of 20 balls or something like that, or just the outlets disappeared and there weren't so many easy singles, and then he gets out within that sort of stretch. And that's probably a credit to Sri Lanka's bowling and captaincy as much as anything, because I don't know that we quite did that. I think the Blackcaps were good at fighting through and getting wickets, but they weren't necessarily able to tie maiden overs together and release the pressure. When Sri Lanka were getting into their big partnerships, the runs just seemed to flow at that stage. They're very good at getting out new batters, but it needed a bit more than that. And I also thought, if you pressed me for the big difference in why they didn't win this, I wouldn't put it down on the fourth innings. I would say it was if anything, it was the second innings, where they just, in the past, you sort of, another thing about the Blackcaps at their peak is that you just trust that they'll get 50 runs from their last 4 batters. It's the tail order will give them something like that. One of them is going to hit a couple of sixes and get through or whatever. Glenn Phillips did some of that. He's not a tail order batter though. He was batting with the tail and got them some runs near the end to at least get him into a lead. But I don't know. I just felt like the Blackcaps of old wouldn't have been 30 runs ahead. They'd have been 70 or 80 runs ahead. And if that was the case, that chase at the end is 210, 220, which I think is a gettable chase. 275 was maybe just a little beyond them in those conditions. But one of the reasons it was beyond them is because there's Devon Conway just gives you no confidence at the top of the order at the moment. And there's a couple of guys in that team. I thought Tom Blundell batted all right. I thought he battled through. He wasn't fluent, but I thought he at least stuck around and tried to put some runs on the board. Didn't get that from Santner with the bat. Didn't get that from Southey with the bat. Did get a little bit from Ajaz and even a little bit from O'Rourke in the first innings, batting with Phillips, but just a couple too many soft spots in that lineup. And it starts at the top because they're losing a wicket very early on most occasions because Devon Conway, and it's not just that he's getting out. You can get good deliveries and you're dismissed, so it goes. You can have bad runs of form and not be that much of a thing because you trust that, if Kane Williamson had a little streak where he doesn't score he has a couple of series where he doesn't score 100, you kind of feel like, he's probably just going to score a double ton next time. That's going to come around because he's still Sometimes you just get good deliveries. Sometimes you get a lot of good deliveries in a row, but that luck balances out over time. With Devon Conway, it doesn't feel like bad luck. And you highlighted in the newsletter how like his head position for the two dismissals, how his head is over, like past the ball in one dismissal and inside the line of the ball for the other dismissal. The second one was the one that bummed me out the most because it's just another inside edge bat flailing way away from his pad. And just how many times have you seen him get up that way? You can't keep doing the same. Like he's not fixing this issue that is very clearly what other teams are now targeting him with. And I, yeah, I don't know how long you can keep going like that. Like it's not very fair to Devon Conway either. It's at some point he needs to like step away and figure out how he's going to like bounce back and at the international level. Maybe it means, as you highlighted before, maybe he doesn't. Maybe it means he settles into a nice lucrative T20 career there. But you just can't have a test match opener who's getting out in the same soft way as often as Conway seems to be. Like something's got to change there.
Like literally dangling your bat.
Yeah.
Past your head, past the stumps, past your foot. That is officially now known as the Conway. I'm just doing the Conway. I'm just putting my bat out there. So we're coming up on summer. So any club cricketers out there, if your old mate's just dangling the bat outside off stump, he's just doing the Conway. And I don't know like what it means technically. Like we just watch a lot of sport. We'd like to think we're pretty switched on about the sports we talked about, but we're not experts. Like I'm not a technical expert. But the idea of Devon Conway being LBW when his head, so he's a left-hander and his head is outside the line of the ball and he's LBW, and then he's going through the gate, which is behind me, the dismissal we're talking about where he's doing the Conway, his head is inside the line of his bat. So the first dismissal, his head is outside the line of the ball. Second dismissal, his head is inside the line of the ball. In neither dismissal, his head is in line with the ball. And of course, the ball's moving, the ball's spinning, the ball's seaming around, but it just doesn't look good. Like it doesn't help you hit the ball. Hence, he missed the ball, then he edged one onto his stumps. Bit of Santner there. I think we're seeing the myth of Mitchell Santner, the Mitchy myth.
I
myth
agree.
Of Mitch. Because
I thought about that in very similar terms.
He's a good batter. He's a good bowler. He's a good fielder. We've just never seen it in Test cricket. So it's just
it's like he looks good at all of these things. He looks good. And then he doesn't score runs and he doesn't take wickets. I won't criticize the fielding. The fielding's always pretty good. But, he took one wicket in this test match and it was the 20th out of 20 wickets that they got. There was a time when they were pressing to bowl Sri Lanka out and he just wasn't a factor. Meanwhile, Ajaz Patel was just ripping through them. He was bowling brilliantly in that second innings. And Will O'Rourke in both innings was fantastic. Maybe there's a little bit of Tim Southee maybe ought to be in the same bag as Santner on this, but I felt like he did more of a job of tying up an end and leading to pressure at the other end. Santner did a bit of that too, but it's just like you don't. I mean, he just doesn't create chances. Like you don't feel like he's going to get a wicket even when he's bowling well. It's that idea again. Like it all looks good, but there's not really any end product to it. He's like the dude in a football team who throws in every step over and then gets like no goals, no assists,
Or the Warriors attacking shape, where they do all the shape, they do all these decoy runs, and they're just one-on-one with the winger out by the sideline. Like, it looks good, but it's not very effective. Thing about Santner, he's an all-rounder. I think he's in the team because he bats, he bowls, he fields. He doesn't do any of those as good as Glenn Phillips, so that's a little bit of an issue. But also...
Or Michael Bracewell?
What? I don't know. I don't know about Bracewell, but Mitchell Santner's averaging 10 in the World Test Championship with the bat. 42 runs in 5 innings. Like he's He looks good with the bat, doesn't score many runs. He looks good with the ball, doesn't take many wickets. Like, I'm not convinced that Michael Bracewell is a better option in that position, but that gets into the makeup of your bowling attack because, like, at some point, Will O'Rourke will need a rest because he's steaming in Sri Lanka. He's going to steam in India. Like, he can't play all 5 tests. Tim Southey can't play all 5 tests. Matt Henry won't play all 5 tests because he missed this one. And Ben Sears won't play all 5 tests. So they need to manage the workloads of those seam bowlers. So maybe a seamer comes in for Michael Bracewell because the ball's nipping around in Sri Lanka. Like, Matt Henry can be effective in Sri Lanka. Ben Sears is hostile, so he can be effective in Sri Lanka. There's options available. Or you just select another batter. Like, I don't know. But Mitchell Santner, regardless of the makeup of the team, the thing here with Mitchell Santner is he is doing Mitchell Santner, where it looks good, but it's just not that effective. We have to wait and see what that means for the team. With regards to the batting, like, it's not quite as soft as I make it seem, but at no stage am I confident. So in the first innings, everyone down to Phillips faces at least 40 deliveries. Conway, 17 runs off 59 deliveries, strike rate of 28.8. He faced 59 deliveries. I never felt like he was back in form. Like, Daryl Mitchell's coming out and he's reverse sweeping everything. He's hoiking everything this way and that way. Scores runs, but I'm not filled with confidence that Daryl Mitchell is an absolute monster. Tom Blundell, the only bloke who looks less confident than Tom Blundell is Devon Conway. So it's like, go down to the second innings, there's a few decent performances. Like, even Tom Latham, like, he's grinding it out, but I don't think this is like vintage Tommy Latham. Kane Williamson looks good, but as you said, like, whether it's Kane Williamson, Daryl Mitchell, Tom Blundell, they can't, like, ride the wave of an innings. Like, we're just going to get through this tough patch, absorb it, be gritty, and then score our runs. They aren't willing to grind down the opposition, essentially. That's soft.
Didn't become the ocean.
They don't become the ocean. And that's where the softness comes in. But it's like, I feel, this is how I'd like to portray it. I feel good about Rachin Ravindra and Kane Williamson and Glenn Phillips. The rest I just don't feel strong about. Blundell and Conway are out of form, that's clear. Tom Latham and Daryl Mitchell are not in the same category as Devon Conway or Tom Blundell. However, they have dropped down in their performances. This is the first back-to-back year, this is the first time in Tom Latham's career where he's averaging below 35 in back-to-back years of test batting. Daryl Mitchell has a test average of 49, which is down because he's not scoring as many runs now, and his World Test Championship average over 6 tests is 34.5. Mitchell's averaging 32.4, Latham's averaging 26.1 in the World Test Championship. Both of those are down on what they usually do or what they had done previously. And when you, like, they both scored 50s in the game, but I don't feel as confident about them as I do Ravindra and Williamson. But also, like, their production has gone down over the last 12 months. Meanwhile, you've got Conway and Blundell averaging below 12. Like, that is the combination that I feel is soft. But
yeah, that's it. Because if you have those guys, like, because the Mitchell and Latham kind of slumps are slumps that come like they're natural slumps within a career. You have these ups and downs.
Well, let's call them dips in form dips.
Yeah, dips. Yeah, they're dips. They're not quite slumps. They're just dips. They're you get these little peaks and valleys, but these aren't either of those. These are just like a hillside, a little dip in the paddock there. But the team can handle those because you're always going to have a couple guys who are in that who are just still awaiting their next big score because that's all it takes to turn an average of 30 to 35 over a year into an average of 45 plus as you get an unbeaten century or something like that. Those guys are awaiting their next scores like that. An unbeaten century isn't going to fix Devon Conway's recent average. He needs a couple of those. He needs to do a lot because he's done more. And the team, because when you've got guys like that, the team suddenly can't withstand the dips as well as they should ordinarily have been able. Like the dips become a problem because the slumps are dragging them down. You just got fewer guys you can rely upon to score runs. And they weren't that far away from winning this test match. Just a few things, like if they got a little bit more, a few more of those tail ender runs, if they just got a bigger partnership in either innings, because really you don't want to leave it to the fourth innings. You want to get that done in the second innings, build a bigger lead. It's there to be done, but didn't quite do it.
They did fill us with a bit of hope throughout the test because apparently the Blackcaps 9 to 11 batters are really good. Like they showed a few times the stats where the average for the Blackcaps tail enders was second highest to Australia or something in that period. However,
and I wonder how many of those runs were scored by Trent Boult, Neil Wagner, Matt Henry, who wasn't playing this test.
It's more recently, if you just hold your horses. So Matt Henry, he wasn't playing in the test. He scored a lot of runs. Kyle Jamieson, he averages 20 with the bat, wasn't playing this test. So, those stats, they kind of filled me with hope right then. And even Neil Wagner, his last test innings was 33 runs at a strike rate of 122. None of that was actually in the team.
Yeah, exactly.
So it was a bit weird. Another sign that things are a bit soft with the Blackcaps. Now again, Latham and Mitchell, they scored 50s. Blundell faced 43 deliveries and 65 deliveries. Kind of gritty, kind of solid. How many Blackcaps batters have centuries in the World Test Championship?
Assuming Williamson does, I know Ravindra does. No one got 100, I don't think, in Bangladesh. Oh, actually, Williamson, I think, got 100 and then didn't score a decent thing after that. So it might only be 2.
It's only 2.
Damn.
So there are only 2 Blackcaps batters in the World Test Championship who have scored a century. It's not like a major issue, but it is a sign that there's just not enough hard work being done. They're not grinding out for long enough. They're not being switched on, focused for long enough. And by the time it gets to Glenn Phillips, I'd like to see Glenn Phillips batting with Devon Conway. I'd like to see Glenn Phillips batting with Tom Latham, with Kane Williamson, because that would be pretty funky, because at the moment Glenn Phillips is batting with the tail and he just smashes boundary, and that's pretty funky.
I'd like to see Glenn Phillips batting ahead of Tom Blundell, just quietly as well. Cheeky swap in the order.
I don't, at the moment Blundell, he's battling. I don't mind, because I think Phillips is better with the tail. He's just going to smash it, so that's all good. We do have a lot of positivity here, though. Ravindra's awesome, Will O'Rourke's awesome, Phillips scored runs, took wickets again. So what do you think about Will O'Rourke? What do you think about Ravindra and Glenn Phillips? Shout out to Ajaz Patel, because he was fantastic as usual outside of Aotearoa.
Well, I wasn't expecting O'Rourke to be as good as he was in that test match, just because it's so it's not just that he's young in his test career, it's also that he's young in his cricket career. Most Blackcaps his age are still establishing themselves, most future Blackcaps his age are still establishing themselves domestically, and he's had a quick rise, but he's just Yeah, man, like he smashes hands, you know. He just it's a skill that translates across continents apparently. So, yeah, he was excellent, and I I think it must have been the Friday newsletter. I pointed out some of the stuff, and it's something that's interesting to track because there's an obvious comparison between him and Kyle Jamieson just because of their height, and also I guess you could say as Aucklanders who moved to Canterbury to get their starts domestically as well. And
They also bowl big in swingers to right-handers. Like they literally do the same
yeah,
thing. It's just Will O'Rourke does it at 140 k's per hour. Kyle Jamieson does it more 134 to 135, and he's taller.
and Jamieson probably because he's a little bit slower does get a little bit more swing from those ones as well. You could argue a little bit more control as well, but O'Rourke makes up for that with a bit more bounce potentially. So like there's an obvious comparison between them in terms of their careers, in terms of their profiles. There's also a really quite funky comparison between their starts to Test cricket as well, because Jamieson came in and just took wickets copiously for the start of his career, and now Will O'Rourke is doing that. So it's O'Rourke's only played what 3 Test matches, so it's too early to read into that necessarily, but there is a pattern emersion there where they're both just coming and been really excellent from day one in Test match cricket.
Well, there is a pattern because in first class cricket, Will O'Rourke has 69 wickets and an average of 24.5, and Kyle Jamieson has 181 wickets and an average of 22.2. Jamieson's career average in Test bowling is 19.7, Will O'Rourke 15.5. So I think that is a window into the talent we have in New Zealand. But that talent just isn't quite leading to Test victories or comprehensive Test performances. However, as I think we talked about in the bonus pod last Thursday, the last 2 tours of Sri Lanka, the Blackcaps lost the first Test and won the second Test. Last time they were in
Lost the first
Bangladesh.
Test at Gaul both times as well.
Last time they were in Bangladesh, lost the first Test, won the second Test. Last time Bangladesh came to New Zealand, Bangladesh won the first Test. Blackcaps lost the first Test, won the second Test. So I think we should hope for a victory in the second Test. Not only because the Blackcaps need it, not only because the World Test Championship campaign needs it, but they've literally done this before. Like they've lost the first Test by a pretty significant margin, whether it's in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, or elsewhere. So I think there was one other example I wrote this morning in the deep dive. England toured New Zealand.
Yeah.
They won the first Test at Bay Oval, and then the Blackcaps won a epic at the Basin Reserve. So there's a pretty strong history of this Blackcaps group losing the first Test by a significant margin and winning the second Test. So that is what we can hang our hats on for the upcoming Test returning to Gaul on Thursday. The White Ferns are in line for a White Ferns series sweep. They've lost the first 2 games, and tonight the third T20 International against Australia will be played in Brisbane, not Mackay. First 2 games were up north in Mackay. Now they go down to Brisbane, where I suspect the White Ferns will win. Because that's what they usually do. Usually lose the first 2 games, win the last game when it doesn't matter. However, the White Ferns are in the midst of a 9-game T20 losing streak, and they are 2-13 in T20s. Wow. They are 2-13 in T20 since December 1st, 2023, which was just before the start of the summer. And of course, last summer started with a series defeat against Pakistan in New Zealand, which was a pretty alarming rock bottom. And since then, they've gone on to lose 9 consecutive T20 internationals. So shout out to Ben Sawyer, Scheming Sawyer. He's doing his thing. He's doing his thingy thing for the White Ferns. And they're just not really that good at cricket at the moment, you know? Like, especially T20 cricket. I think they're not very good at fielding. And they've got bad vibes. And they just do a lot of stuff that's a bit goofy, a bit weird. But T20 cricket, you want to have a whack. You want to play with a bit of vibrant energy. And especially Scheming Sawyer, he's a T20 guru around the world. Until you exposed them in one of our newsletters. But the White Ferns, like they can't score 150 runs. And that's a bit of an issue in T20 cricket. Because you're not going to score 150 runs every game, but you at least want the ability to score 150 runs. And that just kind of means that you're able to have a whack. The White Ferns, the first game, they were 143 for 7. And Australia reached the 145 for 5 in the 19th over. Then, and this is one of the typical White Ferns performances where they play some good cricket. Amelia Kerr takes some wickets. They bowled out Australia for 142. That's awesome. And the White Ferns were trucking along pretty nicely. They had Susie Bates and Georgia Plymouth surviving until the end of the 7th over. They were 73 for 5. Well, let's go. They were 66 for 4, 73 for 5, and they reach 113 for 7. End of the game. So let me say that more concisely. They did well to bowl out Australia for 142, and then they just kind of meandered their way to 113 for 7. Like, they don't even have a whack. They don't even just come out and try to hit boundaries, and I don't think they can. And that's just where the White Ferns are at the moment. It's quite unfortunate, but it's something that we've been tracking for a long time. 2 games into the series, they have no batter with a strike rate over 115. They have hit 1-6. Shout out Maddie Green. She's hit a 6. They also, like, Amelia Kerr's been pretty good with the ball. Her wrong-in was fantastic in the second game. Leah Tahuhu and Molly Penfold, pretty good. Like, they're not too shabby. Jess Kerr just doesn't take wickets now. And in the Monday news that I documented how Jess Kerr's just consistently got worse under Ben Sawyer. So the Ben Sawyer effect isn't helping Jess Kerr. Fran Jonas is, I think she was the best White Ferns bowler since the start of December in T20s prior to the series. Now she's been overtaken by Amelia Kerr. So what has Fran Jonas done in the series against Australia? 1 wicket, an average of 44, RPO of 8.8. Sophie Devine's not bowling. Susie Bates isn't bowling, even though Susie Bates was fantastic with the ball in a small sample size last summer. Everyone talked up her ability to bowl spin. She just doesn't bowl anymore. Sophie Devine's just doing whatever she wants, so shout out to her, but I don't think it's necessarily contributing to wins. And, well, the White Ferns just kind of suck. Let's stretch this out to that bigger sample size going back to the start of December last summer. And there is still just Jess Kerr and Leah Tahuhu with batting strike rates over 115. So again, they don't have a whack. And Fran Jonas, 6.8 RPO, makes her the most economical bowler and the only bowler in the White Ferns who is going at lower than 7 RPO, aside from Susie Bates, who no longer bowls, even though she was pretty good bowling last summer. So they can't really have a whack, and they can't stop other teams having a whack. So I don't know how they're going to win T20 games, and they are preparing for a T20 World Cup. So they're preparing for a T20 World Cup with 9 consecutive losses, maybe a 10th, maybe not. But regardless of the team results, there is nothing in the individual statistics that suggests that the White Ferns are good at T20 cricket. Like efficiency, averages, there's just nothing. So I don't know how we can then expect the White Ferns to win T20 games. And this is, I don't know, every juncture of the White Ferns' journey, it seems like they've hit a rock bottom. Like the ODI World Cup under Bob Carter, that was meant to be the rock bottom. And since then, things have just got a lot worse. So it's a very strange situation. And I don't want to talk about it anymore, but maybe you've got something to share?
Not a lot. I mean, they've had a tricky set of fixtures playing against England and Australia, like the two best teams in the world. So obviously they were going to lose more than they win there. But it does feel like, because even when you hear them talk, there's a lot of like future building kind of chat and developmental kind of perspective, and something I've seen a lot through. In fact, I think I mentioned it on a couple podcasts ago about how like All Whites and Football Ferns teams have been in similar situations where you get a little bit stuck focusing on the development aspect and forget that you're also supposed to be competitive now. Like you're supposed to be winning games now. You might be trying to get better in the future, but overshadowing results in order to just talk about experience and getting reps in for young players and things like this, they actually don't teach those young players how to win games. You're just teaching them how to lose. And that's kind of what the White Ferns do at the moment. Like there's a lot of young players in there, maybe even not the right ones based on the, domestic form and whatever. But the bottom line is that they're trying to be a team that develops their talent on the international stage, and those players aren't getting better, and they're only learning how to lose games, and it's just the same cycle keeps getting repeated. But maybe this T20 World Cup will be the one that shakes things up. Who knows? But I suspect probably not.
And that is all even more insane considering there's a bunch of really solid cricketers who could help the team win right now, as those young players are developing in the natural development process, stomping ground of domestic cricket. But more to the point, the senior players aren't good enough. So if we look using this phase since the start of December, and as you said, they've been losing to England, they've been losing to Australia, but they also had a home series defeat to Pakistan, something that should never happen. And in this period, 15 games, Susie Bates has a strike rate of 109. Amelia Kerr's got an average of 20.7, strike rate of 110. Maddie Green's got an average of 18 with a strike rate of 95. Sophie Devine is averaging 20. She's got a strike rate of 112. Like, those are your best players who are the most experienced players, and they aren't doing the job. So how can you worry about the young players if the senior players aren't leading the way? And when you're talking about team, and you're talking about culture, and your senior players aren't doing the job, it's going to conjure up a funky smell. And by smell, and by funky, when I'm referring to smells, it's never a good thing. If you've got a funky swag, whew, that's pretty cool. But if you've got a funky smell, that's never a good thing. So shout out to the White Ferns. Hope you do well tonight. Hopefully you get that White Ferns sweep. Hopefully someone hits a 6. Hopefully someone concedes less than 7 runs and over. That's complicated. I kind of want the White Ferns to do the White Ferns sweep just because that's the most White Ferns thing to do. But I know what's going to happen. If they win this third T20 tonight, Tuesday night, everything's going to be honkadory. There's going to be positive yarns. We're building to the T20 World Cup. We went through the adversity. We got a win. We got the positive vibration everywhere. Everyone's rocking and rolling. Now we're preparing for the T20 World Cup. Then they'll suck at the T20 World Cup. So either way, that's how it's going to play out.